You ever have one of those days where you just want to come home, kick off your shoes, and melt into the couch, but instead you pull up to your own house and realize your driveway has somehow become a live-action episode of Neighborhood Watch, armed and paranoid? Yeah, that happened to me. If you'd told me the biggest threat I'd face as an FBI tactical commander would be a middle-aged HOA guy in a reflective vest, I'd have laughed. Until the night I met Douglas Brinton. So, let me back up a sec. I just finished a late night at the Sacramento field office. All work brain and to-do lists, nothing but plans for an early run, a school drop-off, and a briefing with my team the next day. No drama, no surprises, at least that's what I thought. But you know what they say, trouble doesn't RSVP. Sometimes, it just waits for you in your own driveway. It was one of those California nights where everything felt too calm, too ordered. The iron gate opened. I eased my SUV into Fairgrove Estates, past all those perfect little houses with their porch lights glowing and hedges trimmed within an inch of their lives. My townhouse sat on the back lot. Beneath a maple tree, I'd basically fallen in love with the moment I saw it. I'd owned the place 3 months, still learning the neighbors, never expected to learn one at gunpoint. And there he was, a man blocking my driveway like he was guarding Fort Knox, arms crossed, feet planted, high-vis vest catching my headlights, and, yeah, you guessed it, a gun on his hip. Not a cop, not even close. The stance was all wrong. But that vest? It had his name, big bold letters, Douglas Brinton. I remember thinking, you've got to be kidding me. I rolled the window down halfway, staying calm, letting my training take over. Evening, I said. Can I help you? He looked me over, sizing me up like I was a trespasser on my own turf. You live here? His tone was pure accusation, not a hint of neighborly welcome. Yes, I do. I answered, reaching for my garage remote, trying to end it right there. But Douglas didn't move. He just tapped his fingers on his gun like he was itching for a reason to use it. This is private property. Residents only. You don't look familiar. I bit down on the urge to laugh. I'd seen this before. Guys puffing up because the badge on their vest was the closest thing they'd ever had to real power. I'm not a stranger. I'm your neighbor, Simone Kearns, Unit 314, I said, my hand hovering near my purse, not for a weapon but for my badge, just in case. Curtains twitched, porch lights snapped on. The neighbors were watching now, some probably dialing 911, others already filming. He wasn't done. Haven't seen you at the HOA meetings. Around here, we keep track. The line would have been funny if it weren't so sad. I'm coming home from work, I told him, and I'd appreciate stepping aside so I can park. But then, snap, he unclipped his holster and drew the gun halfway, metal scraping in the night. You're gonna need more than words, he muttered. My heart pounded, but my face stayed calm. 2 decades teaching agents to talk down hostages, neutralize threats. This wasn't my first standoff. But I'd never had to use those skills at home, under the glow of my own porch light. He stepped closer, gun out, both hands now, aiming at my window. The street went deathly quiet. Neighbors whispered, phones glowed. For a split second, I wondered how this would look on the news. Man with a gun towering over a woman in her own driveway. Mr. Brinton, I said, voice steady. You're pointing a weapon at a resident. That's not only reckless, it's illegal. Lower it. Now. But he shook his head. You don't belong here. People like you don't just slide in without anyone noticing. I'm the HOA safety chair. It's my job to keep this community safe. The irony nearly made me choke. 20 years keeping cities safe, and here I was, being labeled the threat by the guy with the gun. I felt the tension rise, not just between us, but all over the street. I could almost hear the neighbors' thoughts. Who's in the wrong here? Who do we trust? But I didn't care about their judgment, not in that moment. All that mattered was getting this man to put his gun away before he did something stupid. He was jittery, sweating, waving the gun like a toy, but still clinging to the idea he was the hero. I know who lives here, and you aren't one of them, he barked. From across the street, a timid voice, Sharon, I think, called out, Doug, maybe she does live here? He whipped the gun toward her porch. Stay inside, Sharon. I've got this under control. Except he didn't. Not by a long shot. Douglas, I said, I'm not your enemy. You don't need to aim that gun. You need to put it back in the holster. Right now. For a moment, he hesitated, pride wrestling with reason. You don't get it. I keep crime out. I know what trouble looks like. Trouble? I thought. You're looking right at a tired mom trying to get home. That's your trouble? My phone buzzed, probably my daughter. I didn't dare move for it. Any sudden move could get me shot. You don't know me, Douglas, I said quietly. But if you pull that trigger tonight, your life changes forever. You're standing in front of cameras, in front of witnesses, in front of the law. His eyes darted toward the houses. He saw the phones. The weight of being watched was pressing on him now. Finally, I moved, slow and careful, stepped out of the car, both hands visible. You want proof I live here? My keys, my garage clicker, watch. I pressed the remote. The garage door groaned open. Gasps from the porches. Light flicked on. He lowered the gun. Barely. That doesn't mean anything, he grumbled. You could have stolen it. Don't think I don't know tricks. My patience was running thin. You're escalating a situation that didn't need to exist. Look at me, Douglas. I'm standing in my own driveway. You're the one holding a gun. I'm authorized enough. HOA voted me in, he spat. It was almost funny, the way he clung to that committee badge like it made him a cop. Douglas, I said, letting my voice drop to that command tone I use on suspects right before they break. Listen very carefully. You are holding a deadly weapon against an innocent resident. That's a felony. Put the gun down, or you'll answer for it in ways you haven't imagined. The whispers on the street grew louder. Someone yelled, Doug, maybe back off. But pride was the only thing holding up his arms now. Seconds stretched. He barked, You're too calm. Nobody stands this still with a gun in their face unless they're hiding something. Or maybe I know that panic won't save either of us, I said. Think about that. He blinked, thrown off. He expected fear. He got composure. That's the thing about men like Douglas. Confronted with real authority, they don't know what to do. He swung the gun wildly toward the houses, scanning the crowd. Eyes on me, Douglas. I snapped. You're swinging that gun at your own neighbors. Do you realize how reckless that is? You could have just aimed at your neighbor's kid without knowing it. For the first time, he faltered. What kind of training do you have, Douglas? Who taught you to carry like this? Who taught you to de-escalate conflict? I could see the cracks forming. I don't need training. I've been here 15 years. I know what kind of people don't belong. You know what I mean? It was all there. The pride, the prejudice, the desperate need to be the hero in his own tiny world. You've convinced yourself you're a one-man police force, I said. But the truth is, you're waving a gun at the families you claim to protect. What happens if your finger slips? His face turned crimson. Don't turn this on me. You're the one sneaking in. I kept my voice sharp, but steady. I belong here more than you realize. And the reason I'm calm is because this isn't the first time I've had a gun pointed at me, but it's the first time the person holding it was this unprepared. The neighbors murmured. Someone whispered, She sounds like law enforcement. Douglas sneered, grip shifting, sweat beading on his forehead. It was now or never. I'm going to show you something, Douglas. You'll want to see it before you make another mistake. He bristled. Don't try anything. But I pulled out my badge, holding it flat in my palm for everyone to see. Special Agent Simone Kearns, FBI Tactical Command Unit, Sacramento Field Office. I live here. You are pointing a weapon at a federal officer and a neighbor. The street exploded. Gasps. Phones zoomed in. Someone shouted, She's FBI. Douglas's grip faltered, the gun drooping a few inches. He stammered, You're lying. But the conviction was gone. And just then, pride did what reason could not. He doubled down, finger tightening on the trigger. You think that badge scares me? He barked, voice aimed at the crowd. This is my neighborhood, not yours. I dropped my tone to pure steel. That badge means I've stood between shooters and civilians and walked out alive. Everyone here can see your hands are shaking. You're not in control. I am, a neighbor yelled. Doug, put the gun away before you do something you can't take back. The street held its breath. His hands trembled. I took one step closer, slow, steady. Look at me. You want control? Then show your neighbors you can control yourself right now. Prove you're not the danger here. For a second, I saw the fight leave him. The gun started to lower. But then, sirens sliced through the night. Red and blue lights flashed. Squad cars screeched to a stop. Four officers jumped out, guns drawn, shouting, Drop the weapon. Douglas spun, gun still in hand. Panic erupted. Children screamed. Neighbors ducked inside. FBI Tactical Command. I shouted, badge raised high. Armed suspect is HOA Chair Douglas Brinton. He's been threatening me in my driveway. The officers hesitated, then barked. "Mr. Brinton, drop your weapon now." It finally hit him. He wasn't the protector. He was the armed suspect on camera, surrounded, his neighbors staring in horror. His pride fought, but his grip loosened. With a guttural sound, half sob, half growl, he dropped the gun. It clattered on the driveway. Officers swarmed, cuffing him as he shouted, "You're making a mistake. She doesn't belong here." But nobody was listening anymore. The neighbors' eyes had changed. They weren't loyal, just relieved. The storm was over, but the wreckage was everywhere. That night, as Douglas sat on the curb in cuffs, the street transformed. Neighbors huddled in groups. Some murmured apologies, some just stared, unsure which side to pick. I gave my statement, calm but tired, recited every detail for the sergeant. The whispers turned to debates. Some defended Douglas, others finally spoke up about his antics. The divide was clear, and it was only going to get wider. Less than 48 hours later, the HOA meeting was standing room only. Voices clashed, some still defending Douglas, others furious that their protector had nearly killed someone over nothing. The board voted to remove him from the safety committee, to ban armed patrols by private residents. People argued over whether they were losing their security or finally getting it. I stood and said my piece. Safety isn't about paranoia and loaded guns. It's about trust, responsibility, and knowing when to de-escalate. Some listened. Some rolled their eyes. Some walked out. The days after, it all went viral. Local news, social media, the works. My daughter came home from school, wide-eyed. "Mom, everyone's talking about you. They can't believe you stayed calm." I told her, staying calm is what kept me alive, and kept him from ruining his life too. She frowned. "Why did he think you didn't belong?" I didn't have an answer that made it hurt less. Only that fear and pride can turn a person dangerous if you let them. Weeks later, life settled, sort of. Douglas was banned from all committees. Armed patrols were over. Neighbors were still divided. Some thanked me quietly, others wouldn't meet my eye. The story was never about the gun. It was about the choices we make when fear whispers in our ear and pride dares us to listen. So here's the real lesson. Safety doesn't come from suspicion. It comes from judgment, from knowing when to speak and when to hold your ground. If you've made it this far, don't just walk away with the shock. Walk away remembering that in the heat of the moment, you get to choose how the story ends. You can be ruled by fear, or you can let wisdom decide. And hey, if you've got thoughts on where the line falls between protection and paranoia, on who gets to call themselves the good guy, or on what real community looks like, I want to hear it. Drop your take in the comments, because these are the conversations that matter, even when they get uncomfortable. After all, it's not the badge, or the gun, or the loudest voice that keeps us safe. It's the judgment to know when enough is enough, and the courage to stand up, even if it means standing alone.